Is another exciting round of racing coming up in WRLD. We have another new leader now in the championship as Talent Factory retake the lead, but only by 7 points. They're racing alongside the rest of them in just a few short moments. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR-LD. This is the Legacy Division, and we are going to be in for another exciting round of racing. Once again, we are live in Abu Dhabi, and it is myself, Jota, once again alongside James Head himself for what is going to be a very exciting round of racing in what is this Eurovision week, with all of that amazing action coming up. Of course, tomorrow night, we have some really intense racing and more intense actions happening right now in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully nobody can witness the British flags that I've got in the background now. They're supporting May Muller a little bit later on tomorrow night, of course, for you. But good evening, everyone. It has been a while. Of course, we were here last Friday, back with it once again. It should be a very interesting night. And as you mentioned, there's only 7 points separating both Talent Factory and PSR at the top end of the standings. Should be an interesting night. The drivers are out on track. There's a couple of drivers, I think, out there on a set of inters, so they're not setting pure runs at the minute, but it should be a fantastic night, and we always get action around here in Abu Dhabi. Yeah,
we certainly do as well. Just all the drivers now all around on the circuit, a lot of them on the intermediate tyre. We're not expecting a lot of the intermediate tyres to be used, of course, in the middle of the desert, but nonetheless, these drivers just getting a little bit of an insight into what the track is like on circuit at the moment, as we've got everyone that is on track currently on the intermediate tyre. You may notice as well, 18 drivers out on the field at the moment. We are missing 2. One of the NRX drivers, I believe it was Levi, magically disappeared earlier on in the lobby, so he will be hopefully joining us in a few short moments. And the other driver, none other than Dan Spreen, the other WOR driver, not racing as far as we're aware tonight because apparently a hole in his knee.
Yeah, apparently so. Apparently he had a fall on the scooter a little bit earlier on. He's cut his hands quite badly. He's cut his knee quite badly. He is fine. Hopefully we'll seek medical attention if it does get a little bit too serious. But he's not racing here tonight. Probably the best thing as well for him, just to try and recover up. WR down one driver, of course. They got Diogo Silva representing them, I believe, here tonight. The sole WR man, of course, for the PS side. As well, Magician hopefully has not made Levi magically disappear. Of course, Magician was out there on an outlap. He has actually just beginning up a lap, I believe, now. Jensen though out on top of the 128.9. Should be an interesting one. And I mean, if it's anything to go by the PS boys in midweek on Wednesday with the closest qualifying session ever in F1 Esports, I can't wait for this.
Yeah, we should be in for a really fantastic one, actually. I did watch that. It was pretty intense, to say the least. And I think PlayStation obviously wanted to set that precedent that there can be the challenger to the Xbox crowd. That one of those people actually being the Talent Factory themselves. They managing to set that challenge and set that precedent immediately out the blocks by reclaiming the top of the table last week after what was, in the end, a pretty poor performance from PSR and them trying to get their first title in WRLD. Talent Factory immediately pulling back, but the gap only 7.
Yeah, gap only 7 points, and it's all to play for, I think, going into the final couple of rounds of the championship. Of course, I think we've got Brazil, and then, of course, in Saudi Arabia, I think, to come up in 2 weeks' time. So everything is to play for. It is yo-yoing, I've got to say, a bit between them. Smokey, by the way, was on an outlap as well. He's actually just invalidated on that run, so 29.1 that would have been from his perspective. PSR really needs to get their act together, I think, to try and reclaim. Of course, Talent Factory are out on top on 7 points. Outplayed Racing in 3rd on 168. VSR 4th on 119, Team Chazoo in 5th on 114, the Nexus in 6th on 73, Aventus in 7th on 47, WR and Team Valor still tied in 8th on 31, and then Summit Racing Team SRT down there in 10th position on 24 points, of course, known as SLR, I believe. Evan saying, sorry, from the commentators, yes, you've already got one, and Frankie saying Chazoo is already leading. Chazoo is indeed already leading. However, though, Magician has just came out of nowhere, and he's gone 3/10 clear ahead of Jensen. So Chazoo are now no longer leading this qualifying session.
Yeah, NRX and the sole NRX driver leading the way at the moment. Of course, we're hoping to get Levi in this lobby in a few short moments as we're just following Smokey at the moment as he's now heading into the 3rd sector. It's going to be a particularly important one here, actually, for Smokey because, you know, it sets that precedent that PSR were the team, the hunters for that title. And then Talent Factory really putting that massive push throughout this season has really sort of shown quite a bit of a shock, I think, to the system at PSR, because rightly or wrongly, PSR have gone out there thinking that they're the favourites for this title, and only one race out of all the races we've raced, they've actually led the championship, and they've immediately lost it. So perhaps a bit of a humbling nature for PSR here to take some learnings, especially if they don't win the championship at the end of this season. But Talent Factory, nonetheless, are showing some serious pace, and I think PSR certainly are going to take some learnings at least.
Yeah, definitely. So I think if there's one thing, though, we've got to say about PSR so far this season, their strategy calls have been absolutely brilliant. And we hope to see that. I remember Hungary, I think one of the first races I covered for Legacy Division. And that 1-2 in Hungary was absolutely stunning. So PSR have got the tactical know-how. They can try and outgun Talent Factory on their day. Of course, last week it was different because Talent Factory actually outgunned PSR in terms of strategy, getting a very good finish, of course, last week. And it really is all to play for out on track. We have got one car out on track at the minute. That is the JR man of Yona, the PS man. He does love it around here. He is the first man as well on that set of soft compound tyres. So this would be the first indicator of the sort of laps that we're going to be seeing, as he nearly, I thought, spin out of turn number 14, but he hasn't. He's just warming up his tyres through 15 and 16. He's about to go on a run.
Actually, you mentioned JR, Juventus Racing. What a magnificent race they had last week, didn't they? First podium of the season, as far as I'm aware, and they've really, really smashed it, haven't they? Because they were really looking for that strategy call and for, potentially to script together some good points, but the driver absolutely blitzed the circuit last week, and that ended up leading Juventus some really, really good points, actually, 15 of them, to be exact, to see them rise up the rankings. And now in that situation, they're going to be pushing towards the midfield of the table as a result of that, and they're going to be so happy, and they want to try and keep up that form now as they race around Abu Dhabi. They know Abu Dhabi is the mindset track, isn't it? You want to be sort of aggressive at the circuit, knowing that this is going to be towards the end of the season. We don't typically see leagues in any way use the Abu Dhabi as the final or one of the beginning tracks of the season. So therefore, the natural mindset of these drivers is going to be, we're getting to the latter end of the season. We've got to be aggressive. We've got to get these points on the board. So surely we're going to be expecting good things from Juventus over the final three races here.
You'd like to imagine so. I mean, they were fighting out pretty much for the wooden spoon, I think, throughout the season. And I'll make no question about that. The WOR, Team Valor, Summer Racing Team there, 8th, 9th and 10th, they're not in the clear. Juventus, if one good round comes for either three of those teams, they're back within potentially that drop zone, potentially to try and fight with those guys further down. But that was a really, really good showing as Jonas invalidated the 24 flat out on track on his run there. But Juventus were absolutely shining out on track. And with Yona there as well, obviously with the other JL man of Fezzo, who I'm not actually familiar with. I'm not actually sure who Fezzo might be, but I know from I think it was last week actually, that he actually appeared in Legacy Division. I've seen him somewhere and he was very, very quick. So watch out for the JL man out on track and watch out for the JL team, because they could spring a bit of a shock potentially tonight.
Oh, caught me off guard. I'm just having a bit of a sip of water on that one. But, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm looking forward to seeing what the drivers have got coming up, because we're going to be in, I think, for a bit of a monster of a ride here. These drivers are all very keen to sort of show off their final bits of pace, of course, because remember, it's the end of the game cycle as well. We've had many updates now to this new game that's coming up, F123. Some really promising things, actually, coming out of Codemasters and EA. To suggest that these drivers are going to be in for a wild ride next game cycle, but they want to try and finish this one off on the high, because it's of course going to be an important factor going into next season about who is going to be taking the priority in lead events such as WOR Legacy.
Yeah, definitely so. And obviously they have to have that adaptability as well. Obviously, with there being a new gaming model, a new handling model, new physics engine apparently going to be coming in as well about mid-game. So it is going to be really, really interesting to see who can adapt from this game, from F122, and then take that with their team into F123. I'm more excited about the controller technology because I am a pad player. I like to race on pad, so it is going to be fantastic, hopefully for me. Hopefully it's not a PS5 limited thing, but there we are. Smokey, has a huge moment coming out of turn 15, coming on to his final run, on the run toward the line, and he goes quick as 23 flat. Very good lap time there by the WOR Console Tier 1 man, who of course made contact around here in Console Tier 1 this season. So Smokey, if he can iron out that mistake that he had, he should be well up there, and we should be seeing both PSR drivers. As soon as I say that, Nick goes second. We should be seeing both PSR drivers just for that lap alone very comfortably through into Q2.
on board with Team Valor's Josh Gilly at the moment. Now he's just heading through the final few corners, of course, underneath the sections of architecture as he goes through into turn 15 and then into 16. And the Red Bull liveried Team Valor car will, of course, want to try and set some immediate precedence, and unfortunately Gilly is not going to be able to do that at the moment. 23.6, putting him just a bit over 6 tenths of a second slower than the fastest driver out there, being PSR. Talent Factory also on laps across the board at the moment as JR Fezzo, as Juventus Racing beat Smokey to the fastest lap on here. But a possible suggestion here that track evolution is going to be quite a prominent factor at around a circuit of this length, as VSR Lucas actually left the session, so hopefully we can get him back in ASAP. Here comes Kian then for Talent Factory, looking to try and beat PSR if they can help it, and they certainly do, but they're not as fast as Juventus Racing's Fezzo at the moment, who is still fastest by just a little bit over a tenth of a second, as Legend is just going now into turn, looks like turn 12.
Yep, coming into the grandstand through the left-hander 13, through the left-hander turn 14. We'll see what Legend can do. Of course, Legend has actually been providing himself on PC rather than on PS recently, so this is a big adaptability once again from him. He hasn't lost any of his know-how coming through the final couple of corners, though. On the run to the line, goes third, right in behind Kian. We've also got the OP guys actually bailing out into the pit lane. One of them came across the line, that was Johan, to go second, the former Team Mentalism man, of course, back in the day. OP there in second, and Nando, who was on that, must have invalidated coming out the final two corners, because that is him back in the pit lane, down in 17th in the drop zone early. And remember, with only 18 drivers, we see the bottom 3 drop out, so that will really test the know-how. The likes of SLR, for example, Simbarox in trouble. I think he's just going on another run at the minute. Nigel as well in trouble. Lucas, if he can get it back into the session, he's a little bit in trouble at this stage as well. It's really going to be all to play for. Simbarox scores ahead of Magician. Magician's lap is there with a 28.3, which is not representative at all. It is, though, going to be very interesting to see, as Fezzo already thinks he's done enough, and the French Wonder Kid, as I think I called him last week, has retired already from the session and is ahead of another Frenchman and Johan in second.
Another driver, the only driver rather, to get into the 1 minute 22s as well at the moment is Juventus Racing's Fezzo. I think Fezzo was the driver managing to get the podium, if I remember correctly, last week as well. Great performance, actually, from Juventus Racing nonetheless. And you know what? Juventus Racing suddenly going to be looking, thinking, hello, are we on the possibility of another podium here? And that would see them rise through the standings even further if they can power on through that one. Simbarox won for the Summit League Racing team, unfortunately invalidating his lap, so he will not be progressing any further than his 23.8 on this particular lap. Magician just coming out at turn 14, by the way, 28.313 at the moment, so not representative lap time as pointed out, so that means he will be having another go at this one. But as it stands so far, the other drivers that haven't set a lap time are the ones that are currently going to be knocked out, except Nigral, I believe, at the moment for SLR, though curiously still on the intermediate tyre, so perhaps away from his controller/wheel at the moment. We'll keep an eye out then on Juventus Racing's Jonah at the moment. He's now coming to the end of his outlap. Critical point here now for Juventus Racing. They've got one driver certainly through to Q2, and by quite the way as well. The only driver, like I said, to get into the 22s. Jonah would be very keen to try and at least get somewhat close to his teammate.
Yeah, you'd imagine he'll go around Diogo Silva, Gilly, that sort of area. Shazoo Harry down in 12th position. That's a bit disappointing from him. I know he can improve a lot quicker. He has won around here before. Did a very good performance, I think, in WOR Console Tier 1 as well, so he is one to watch out for. Yona just catching the curve there through turn number 2, just unsettled the car slightly and then lost the angle coming through turn number 3. 17.4 in the first sector, very respectful indeed, but he's just taking to the apexes too much. He's got that angle completely wrong into turn number 5, and he's going to lose all of that time from turn 5 all the way down and towards turn number 6. So that down a straight as he backs off his lap. He knows better than me, I think, not to continue on with that lap. Yona there, down at 18. He is in trouble, but as long as he saves his ERS, as long as he saves his fuel, he'll be fine for a final run. He's got 2 minutes and 20 seconds, so he'll be fine. And Nigel, by the way, Adrian saying in the chat, can any of the commentators invite Nigel? Unfortunately, I can't, because my friends list is full, and yeah, I can't invite Xbox guys apparently within the lobby. So that is terrible, but Nigel is out of the session at the minute. Hopefully we can get him back in. I know Lucas is back in the session, definitely.
A bit of a flex, that, isn't it? My friends list is full, apparently. Oh, there we go. Yeah, a bit of an unfortunate scenario for Nigel, though, because he needs to get back in this lobby ASAP. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to get in before, any possibility of being able to get an outlap and then a lap done. So, as it stands, he is actually still through, but whether the 107% rule will apply in this particular division remains to be seen on that one, as Lucas has gone for a spin, and I believe that's qualifying over. One of the VSR drivers will be immediately knocked out. Lucas, who goes for an immediate spin over the curb, spins the car, and he's out of qualifying. So there's definitely one missing on that one. Juventus Racing's Jonah, by the way, still in the pit lane. In fact, he's come into the pit lane and retired, so that is it for him. So he won't be qualifying, so it is a Juventus Racing sandwich, to say the least, between first all the way as far down as 18th. So the only driver that can knock out SLR's Nigel at the moment is this man, OP Nando, Outplayed Racing. Again, looking to keep up with their form, keep on to third place and extend that gap between them and fourth, as Magician comes across the line to go sixth fastest of anyone so far, which is now putting Simblewalk's One into the danger zone, if you will. Of course, Nigel's still able to get sneak through as it stands despite not being here, but Outplayed Racing's Nando at the moment looking like a bit more of a conservative one on this occasion.
Yeah, definitely so. Nick apparently complaining in the Discord about potential blocking from the OP boys as well. Not from Nando, I don't think. I think it's more from the other OP man of Johan, who was on his outlap. Nando on board with now coming in towards the left-hander of turn number 9, formerly turn number 11, of course, after the chicane got removed from this track. Purple in the middle sector, 52.8, but that is not really that special from Nando in that middle sector. Coming where the Marina is on the right-hand side, now through the triple right of 10, 11 and 12. It hard on the bikes in towards turn number 12. This has not looked a great lap, I've got to be honest, from Nando. Coming through 13, now coming through 14. Again, a bit sketchy out of 13. Black's on the throttle. Lucas, by the way, has got onto another run, so he might actually still toss Nigel out. He's through at the minute, Lucas, with 15th position, but Nando on the run to line. I did say this wasn't a good lap. It puts him 8th position, though, so it is actually a respectable lap. Not the pace that I'd be expecting, though, from him. Ogween improving. Quantum as well, improving a 10th and a half up in that first sector.
I'd love to know how Lucas has managed to get around the circuit that quickly, because he was only at turn 3 with a minute and 23 seconds to go when he spun, so he must have cut a bucket load of corners to at least have another go on this particular lap. If so, I wonder if the stewards are going to potentially have a word with VSR about their performance of Lucas, if indeed it is against the rules. We'll have a look at the rule book on that one, if indeed he did do that. If he managed to get through legally anyway, I'll be... I won't be surprised. I'll just be completely bamboozled and wowed by the performance of someone on an outlap, basically producing a qualifying lap. By the way, Lucas now coming through around the circuit now. He's now approaching into turn 12, into 13, then into 14. Of course, extended corners now around here, which is going to allow for potentially a better run out of these corners, although Nicholas Latifi didn't see that. As he comes through 15, then into 16. And of course, be looking to put Diogo Silva under some pressure as he comes across the line right now. Well, Lucas, he does put Diogo Silva under pressure. 15th place, he sneaks in. And that will be it. And we are losing Diogo Silva in the end. And we're also going to be losing Nigral as well, of course, disconnecting earlier on in this session, as well as the other Juventus Racing driver of Jonah, also out of qualifying. But Lucas sneaks in. But there'll be questions about how he managed to get around the circuit that quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Lucas spun out of turn number 3. It certainly was about a minute and a half when he spun. So I think he was fine well within the time. I think he's just got around on his own accord. But Fezzel's out on top. Harry there in second. I did say it was a disappointing lap from Harry. Didn't even see him improve. That's how quick he was. Johan in third. Kian and Legend ran off the top 5. Then Smoky Magician, Nando, Nick and Jensen top 10. Quantum, Ogween, Simbarox, Gilly, and Lucas, the top 15, they all get through. Diogo Silva, a tenth of a second off on Lucas in the end. Nigel in 17th, and Yona there in 18th. Disappointingly, out of qualifying.
15 drivers yet to go through Q2. We're back in just a few short moments. Stay tuned. Another quick look then at those standings, and I'll tell you what, really, really interesting stuff now taken into consideration the performance of Q1, because they're in a position here where VSR, and Lucas especially, is under a little bit of pressure here, only 15th fastest overall. They're battling with Team Shazoo, and their drivers are looking really quick tonight. And we've also got this possibility here that Outplayed Racing may have blocked someone. That could be a bit of an issue in the race and could be a points deduction here. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th as well if Magician sort of flies high. Could be in the mix here. And with Juventus on 47 and also potentially looking for a podium as Magician goes for a spin, by the way, just off of screen, Juventus Racing is in a position where they could potentially be on for another podium here. So you could argue 3rd through 7th could get a little bit spicy here.
It could. It could. And I mean, there's a gap of what? Between VSR and Juventus, there's a gap of about 70 points. I mean, the way that they're going at the minute, Team Shizou you could probably ignore. They're probably the best team, I think, out of that lot. OP in 3rd. They're probably going to be snatching 3rd very easily indeed. Nexus Racing, VSR are in trouble. Juventus Racing, with Fezzo's addition, has been absolutely brilliant. Of course, he topped the session there by only 100th of a second on Harry. Harry there in 2nd did a fantastic job for the Shizou. But it can all change, of course, as we go through to Q2 and Q3. I wouldn't at all be surprised if Fezzo goes quickest out of everyone by the end of tonight. But keep an eye out for one certain PSR man in Smokey, Console Tier 1 champion, of course, this season. He will be the man that I think is going to set pole position around here and put PSR on top in qualifying as we go forward into this session.
No, you know what? I'm going to say Fezzo's going to do it, you know. I'm just going to go on a limb and I'm just going to say, you know what, Juventus? I'm going to pull something out of the bag with Fezzo because he is looking so quick out there. Q1 immediately putting out a 22. We're getting a little bit sheepish, though, through turn 1. But easily able to ride the curbs, though, curiously, with a 17.4 in the first sector, as he then misses his apex ever so slightly going through the left-hander at turn 5 as he heads through to turn 6. So I do think Fezzo's got it within him to potentially get a pole, but he just needs to keep powering on.
Yeah, he made a couple of mistakes, actually, coming through the first couple of corners there. So this lap is not actually maybe the great representation that we're seeing from Fezzo. And again, catching the curb out of turn number 8, just catching on that curb, really just sends the car nearly off-centre, off-camber of the corner and off on the curb as well. And this middle sector, 53 flat, is not what we were seeing by the top guys in that qualifying session. Fezzo already losing time compared to what he was setting. It's a very good lap, though, don't get me wrong. The Juventus Racing man looking to try and go quickest. I believe Smokey is out there and out. The only man in the pit lane, actually, is PSR Nick. So Nick is not going to risk it out of everyone. Might try and go out of sync towards everyone else. Fezzo, it's beautiful. Coming out of 13 and 14. Now through 15 and 16. Been running towards the final corner now at turn 16 on the run to the line. Should be around a 23.5, I think, with this lap. Oh, 23.5 dead on.
Got me off guard again. Keep going, please.
Smokey as well has actually just invalidated his run. So Smokey just invalidated his run. Legend now going quickest, trying to flick through as well. Shizou Harry's on the run toward the line. The Hong Kong man on the run toward the line with the Shizou team goes 3rd. So not a bad lap time there at all from him. Jensen just starting up on a run. Lucas 52.7 in the middle sector of the purple out of everyone that I've seen so far. Legend though out on top. Fezzo in 2nd. Ogui now in 3rd. Very close, actually 400ths of a second. Now just absolutely obliterated by the man on that fresh set of soft compound tyres in Johan. He goes quickest. Lucas there is on a very good lap here. He should go 2nd with this run. Coming through the final couple of corners, the Mercedes man, and he does by only a 10th of a second, but a good lap nonetheless to Johan from Lucas, from Legend there, ran off the top 3. And Evan asking in the chat, is Slipstream allowed? I believe it isn't. Thank you.
I appreciate that one. I was just taking an ibuprofen as you were doing that one, so thank you very much for taking charge of that one. The ask of the question, by the way, if slip is allowed, no, it is not. As far as I'm aware, it's not allowed. So I was going to argue, you know, Juventus Racing's Fezzo might be in a bit of trouble without his teammate giving him the slip, but unfortunately, it's not even going to matter anyway, is it? Because he's going to be on his own regardless of whatever happens. However, going to be interesting to see how sort of he develops. Now, it's quite clearly, I think, used tyres at the moment for those drivers out there, just getting another feel for the circuit as they all now come in for the end of their stint. Though we could see the likes of Nick, who is going to be out of sync. Jensen will be out of sync as well. Decide to go on to a new set of softs a little bit earlier on in this Q2 session. They'll fall out of sync, but they'll be able to set their initial lap times and potentially sneak into the top 10. But the track evolution around here is quite extraordinary. It is getting significantly quicker nonetheless as Simba Rocks 1 goes for a little bit of a tank slapper going through turn 14.
Yeah, well recovered like a Canadian Williams driver back in the day in 2021. Less we say about that, the better. Of course, Latifi we are on about in the commentary here. Simba Rocks there going 10, 25.9. Again, that mistake ironed out. He should go quicker than that. He might be one of the favourites to go out here in Q2, which is unfortunate. I mean, SLR have made it through with one of their drivers. Nigel saying as well in the chat he has now done the session, which is very good. So Nigel will be doubly represented with SLR, which is fantastic. Yona as well saying, can he get invited into the lobby? I believe he is already back in. So Yona there in, where is he? He is out of the session at the minute, obviously in Q1, but hopefully he can get back into Q2 and Q3. Simberbox is the only man out on track at the minute, but interestingly, Nick has decided to wait. And this is, again, what we mentioned about PSR and their strategic know-how. Nick has came out right behind Smokey, going on an outlap. Fezzles just came out ahead of them as well. This is smart from PSR. They've saved a sort of soft compounded size for Nick. I'm assuming he's out there now in a fresh set. That has actually not worked out too bad. That is brilliant. If PSR can pull this off, this could be 1-2.
Potentially. It's all depending on that track evolution. And of course, remember, Nick is not, Smokey is not able to give Nick a toe either. So, and same vice versa, of course. So, that is not got to be, it's got to be something that's taken into the equation here. But PSR may choose to play the risky game and let Nick be close to Smokey, but not enough that it can cause that much of an effect or a questionable effect on the straights. But nonetheless, if they do end up giving a toe, I'd expect especially the likes of the Talent Factory to be throwing a complaint into the stewards if indeed that is something that they will be, looking to try and nip in the bud, especially considering the likes of Shazoo. You can see here Jensen and Harry are massively apart here, at least about 15 seconds apart, actually, are the two drivers. So, the expectations there, people are not giving toes, and the same should be said for the PSR boys. But we'll see, nonetheless, as Nick is now just approaching turn 15. Smokey's just coming out of 16, and he will hold off to avoid getting the toe from his teammate. And PSR are looking to potentially snag a 1-2 off each other at exactly the same time. Let's see what happens. Smokey, it was who on board with right now.
Yep, coming through the right-hand of turn number 3, not looking too bad. Beautiful run, actually, compared to Fezzle through there. First sector, proven, 17.2. He's on that fresh set of soft compound tires. You can tell by the gleam, basically off the headlights, coming through turn number 5, that he's on that fresh set. It is a beautiful rubber down tyre. Bit of controversy as well in the manager's chat. Now, I don't want to say this on stream, but apparently a team had a sneak slipstream in Q1, and apparently it could be OP once again. So OP could be in trouble for the second time in about his consecutive week to Smokey. He butchers the chicane there of 6 and 7. He is now hopefully not going to use up any slipstream. Nick, I'm going to watch on board with very carefully indeed here. Make sure PSR don't pull any tricks, and they don't, because he's on the other side of the track. Nick not following any slipstream. Well done by the PSL boys, and Nick in the middle sector, 52.6, and he again is on that fresh set of soft compound tires. Should be seeing big time improvements on this run. Fezzle, by the way, 4 tenths up as well, 52.6 in that middle sector.
Outplayed Racing in trouble once again. This is the last thing they need as well, because they obviously want to try and keep up that distance that they've got between them and 4th place at the moment, and if they keep getting penalties, they're going to be in trouble here. As Fezzo, not in trouble at all, 22.7, fastest of all lap times submitted so far. Here comes Nick, though. Will he be able to get into the 22.7s? He will not. He will match the first position lap time of Q1 at 22.9. So on that occasion, Smokey will be a bit disappointed he's missed out on that one, but he will have another go, and luckily he's going to get a tow actually from potentially another team on that one, and that is legal because it is what it is. So potentially an opportunity for Smokey as he now goes through into turn 1, and Kian going fastest of anyone so far for Talent Factory there with a 22.7 of his own, but only 500th of a second separating Kian from Fezzo at the moment. Juventus Racing are going to be smiling from ear to ear at the moment as he now heads down into the turn 5 left-hander. He is going to get a tow from, I believe that's an Aston Martin, but look at that, darting straight out of the way is the NRX driver of Magician. It doesn't give Smokey any possibility of that one as Legend comes across the line with a 22.8 and Shazoo Harry 22.9. Now Nick down to 5th place, but by only 2/10 of a second. It is mighty close stuff out there.
Yeah, and if I was the top 5, honestly, I'd think about retiring and saving a set of tyres, because I think that is enough, because now we get 6 within 0.2 of a second. Nando there splitting Talent Factory, Legend and Nando. Smokey in the middle sector, 52.6.
Sorry, VSR Lucas, 22.808. So now he's gone 3rd fastest of anyone so far. And now 7 drivers within 0.2 of each other here. And we're going to have Smokey coming across the final couple of corners here. And then he's, look at that rear end, really wants to step out. And you can see there, and he's invalidated. He's done an Alonso going through there for 2014, losing the rear ever so slightly. And now he's under the cosh. He's got to use another set of fresh soft tyres if he wants to possibly sneak through here, because that 1st through 7th is so close. 8th, 9th, and 10th is going to be mighty close to sneak through into Q3 here. This is going to be one hell of a Q2 as a result of that one.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. This is the console tier 1 we're talking about here, and I mean, Smokey there in 15th, just come to show the level of commitment that he was carrying through 13 and 14, and I almost flinched coming to the left-hander 13 because he got caught on that outside curb, and that just slightly corrected his angle going through 14, and that's why the car wanted to snap out on him pretty much in towards the wall. Well recovered, I've got to say, because that car could have easily picked up rear wing damage if he wasn't that careful and went for full spin. There in 15th, I wouldn't discount him out of Q2 whatsoever. He is going to be going up there towards the back end, but he has only got one more chance of doing it potentially, so that could be the big disadvantage that he does have. Kian has also left the session recently as well, so hopefully he can get back in as well as Quantum. I'm not sure if he's actually on a lap. I think he might be on a down lap at this stage. The VSL man's the only man out on track, 23.933. Look to shoe in potentially to go out here in Q2. Simbarock's looking a little bit under pressure as well, and both the team Ballas as well. We haven't mentioned them here tonight. Josh Gilly and Ogwin, they're under pressure, but if anybody can deliver a lap as Quantum's back in the pit lane, Josh Gilly and Ogwin. Ogwin's probably the favourable one out of the pair to try and get through into Q3.
Just keeping an eye out on NRX Magician on an outlap now, so this is the final runners here coming through. Now Magician will be wise to put on a new set of soft tyres, as will Jensen, as well as Gilly, Ogwin, Quantum, Simbarox, One and Smokey, of course, because all of these drivers are going to be in, well, under a little bit of pressure here, because we've got 7 drivers, all within around about 2/10 of first place at the moment. Leading driver Talent Factory's Kian. Fezzo is once again up there, but challenging the likes of the Talent Factory from VSR Lucas, Legend, and then Outplayed Racing's Nando. And once again, there's this argument about Fezzo because the performance he had last week and the performance he's pulling in now, Juventus Racing will be very wise to keep him in the reins of the team, because I've got no doubt the likes of Talent Factory will be very happy to swallow him up.
Yeah, they're going to be chomping at the bit, I think, in terms of his performances. I mean, Juventus Racing, I've got to try and maybe sign probably one of the biggest esports contracts, I think, in history to try and keep him within the team, because he's that under. He's probably getting scouted right now by the big teams, by the esports teams. I think, as I say, he's not at esports challengers age yet, but the Frenchman doing a fantastic job. He's there in second. He's retired. Kian's retired as well. He's luckily back in the session. Magician now coming through the left-hander turn number 1, through the left-hander turn number 2, and then through the right-hander of turn number 3. Unfortunately, he hasn't wrote the song. Unlike May Muller, the Magician coming through the first sector, having bars like Armenia into the left-hander turn number 5. The 17.2 in the first sector, not looking too bad, and rocking like Voyager with Thomas.
Nice. As we just keep an eye on Magician as he's now heading through into turn number 6 and then turn number 7. It's going to be pretty critical here now, actually, for Magician. Of course, being in that brink, he's on the brink of potentially being knocked out of qualifying as it stands. He'll have about of a 2/10 buffer, 0.207 seconds advantage to Josh Gilly for TV8. TV8 be looking to get above the 6th row of the grid if they can help at least get one of the drivers through to Q3, as he's actually apparently gone purple in the second sector, has NRX Magician, though we'll call cap on that one, courtesy of Codemasters themselves, as he now chucks the car heading through into turn number 12 and into 13. And then this is where, of course, we saw Smokey go for a little bit of a half spin through here, using that curb and the rear looking very, very stable, and like on Smokey's car on that particular occasion. Going through to 15 and then into 16. It's a critical lap now for Magician. Where can he put his car? He's gone off of the circuit, but he's got away with it. It's 8th place, 23-0, and puts himself within 3/10 of the drivers at first place. That may not even be enough as it stands, with the drivers all coming around the grid at the moment, and a big slap into the wall for Jesus Jensen, and that is now him at serious risk of being knocked out of qualifying. Josh Gilly won't be improving. Ogwin will be looking to improve here, as Johan for Outplayed Racing is in 10th fastest now as a result of an improvement from somewhere on the grid, because Smokey has gone second fastest, beaten Fezzo but not beaten Kian. Jensen goes into the pit lane, is knocked out. Gilly will not be improving. Simbarox 1 is also on a lap, but he is not going to be improving either. Ogwin looking to improve as Nick goes fastest of anyone so far, and we're into the 22.6s So PSR now starting to show the pace that we've been waiting for. Ogween then for TV8, can they at least get one of the drivers through into Q3 as it comes across the line? No, they'll miss it by only 100th of a second. VSR Quantum also looking to improve. It's pretty critical here for the VSR driver to get through, because VSR could really do with the performance of both of their drivers after a poor performance last week. 23.9 is the current level of pace that Quantum has got, but he knows he's got more in him. Is he going to be able to find at least a 23.1 to beat Johan to the line as he comes across the line right now? Goes 9th fastest and gets a 22.9 on the board, knocks Johan out. Magician only sneaks through.
Yeah, and shows no solace, unfortunately, to Magician or to Johan. Magician there in P10. Johan, unfortunately, out of the qualifying session, but Quantum there in 9th position. Fantastic stuff. Maybe getting the golden gun out. Who knows? They're down in 9th. Smokey there in 5th as well. Was 2nd. Improvements, though, from Legend and Nando brought him down into 5th position. Still going to be one to watch out for, though, in qualifying. There's Nick, though, out on top. Legend 2nd. Nando in 3rd. Kian and Fezzle, by the way, retired early out of that qualifying session. That means they've got an extra set of soft compound tires if they want to use it up. So if there's any invalidations, potentially Kian and Fezzle can use up that tyre, maybe get rid of them, and maybe also go for an alternate strategy from hards to softs in the race in Abu Dhabi here. But the tyre wear around here is very, very high. But it's Nick out on top, Legend 2nd, Nando there in 3rd, as we just wait on Smokey now to retire in the pit lane with 10 drivers going to Q3 and only 0.4 per second separating them.
It's going to be a particularly interesting one looking at this now, because we have got all of the grid in the top 10 separated by just 0.4 of a second. The top 5 separated by 1.5. In fact, the top 6 separated by a little bit over 1.5. So we are in for a serious ride for potentially who could be on for pole, because every 100th and every 1,000th is going to count in a race of this magnitude. There is your current pole sitter as it stands then. PSR Nick with the fastest lap of that 1 minute 23.6, and that is going to 22.6 rather, beating Legend by just a bit under, or exactly rather, 58 thousandths of a second. But look at that, 0.437 seconds separating first from 10th, and in fact it was just over half a second that saw Johan get knocked out of qualifying from Ogween, from Jensen, from Gilly, and of course at the back in 15th place, Simbarox 1 for SLR. We are going to be in for a very interesting Q3 coming up, if that's got anything to go by. Back in a sec. Well, that is it then for Q2. We're down to our final 10, down for pole position. I'm still putting my money on Fezzo, but crikey, just a little bit over 0.4 of a second separating him, well, the top 10 in general. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. We're going to be in for a manic Q3.
We are indeed, and are we going to see the scenes of Silverstone early on for F1 Esports Challenges on Wednesday? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to get that close, but it's a really fascinating qualifying session. I mean, the likes of Quantum, I wouldn't have thought actually would have got through to Q3. He's done a fantastic job. Harry as well, do not rule him out to potential pole position. I am still sticking by my man Smokey. PSR will love the fact that I'm actually supporting them tonight rather than Shazoo. But PSR in 10th position, also with Nick through as well. Nick also choosing to go out there early. He's the first man out on track. Smokey, interestingly, is staying in the pit lane. So that is now a carbon copy of what we saw in Q2, saving the tyres, and then Smokey comes in, maybe bangs in the fastest lap of the qualifying session.
Well, I'll tell you what, now, so we're going to have all of these drivers on the outlap and giving it all they can get. And I'm expecting that perhaps some of these drivers may be on a used set of soft tyres, but then, of course, they want to try and have a spare set of softs, you know, just in case we end up having that safety car. And it is very much possible at a circuit of this scale. So, you know, they want to have that fresh set of softs just in case they need them. So Q3 sets of softs, they're waiting for them, but we're expecting not the quickest laps on this particular lap, but they are going to be coming up soon. It will be Nick to start off all of these laps here then as he goes through into turn 1. And once again, the car looking reasonably planted actually for the PSR drivers. He chucks it through 2. Okay, oh, that rear doesn't look happy though, going through 2. It doesn't look happy through 3 as well, having to adjust the steering wheel ever so slightly just to keep that car in a steady motion as they then head into 1. And 17.3 to be fair, not bad first sector for USES. Again, look at that rear stepping out.
Yeah, stepping out big time now, coming down the straight in towards turn number 6. Just tries to pick up the faintest toe there from Smokey. Didn't go within the toe, of course, of Smokey, just the side of him. Still can get a little bit of air, though, and it can dig underneath, of course, the front wing. Gave a little bit of downforce, potentially, on the car. Nick now coming through the left-hander of turn number 7, then into the left-hander of turn number 8, now down into the middle sector split. Not looking too bad at all here, is Nick at this stage. Should be around a 52.7, I think, in this middle sector. 52.8 in the middle sector, even on this new set of soft compound tyres. Oh, and again, that big rear end really wanted to snap out on him. Quantum, for reference, by the way, is purple in the middle sector, so he looks like he's gone into a fresh set of softs. Watch out for him. He might be going quicker than Nick at this stage.
Yeah, maybe as he comes through then into turn number 14, the Latifi corner, if you will. It looks like he may have escaped track limits ever so slightly. If they've just got away with it. If not, look again, that rear is not happy at all. That is used softs to the ends of the earth, to say the least. So Nick will come across the line with a 23.5 used set of softs. Quantum comes across the line, 23.5 used set of softs. So the Magician is on an invalid lap. Fezzo goes purple in the first sector, whilst the rest of the drivers are just finishing their outlap. Smokey and Lucas just starting.
Yeah, they are indeed. Fezzo through the first sector, 17.3. He's down in towards turn number 6 now, the Juventus Racing man. Potentially the man you're predicting for pole position, certainly, Jota. It's going to be interesting who might get this right. But Fezzo now coming through the chicane of 6 and 7, now in towards the old GP2 pit straight. Famously used to run GP2 races from this point onwards in 2013. Mercedes in the yellow flags in the middle sector, ignore them. Fezzo in the middle sector, 52.6, that's more likely in terms of lap time. The green on the tyre indicates to me still on the used set rather than on a fresh set. So Fezzo there, looking very good, I've got to say. Smokey in the first sector, didn't catch his first sector split, but it was quick, I'm sure. PSL man one to watch out for as he comes through that middle sector split. Fezzo now coming through past the Marina on the left-hand side through 14, then through the right-hander of turn number 15, then through the right-hander again of turn number 16. Very much on the line there, coming through the curb on the front line. Is he going to go quicker? No, invalidate, and that is unfortunate for him. Smokey in the middle sector, I think, was showing purple, but I'm not sure if he's up on Nick.
That was a blistering quick time, and if that is on a used set of softs, I've got to say that Juventus Racing are a real possibility of managing to get that pole. 22.7 is what he got before track extending at the final corner, perhaps just pushed it too far. Lucas then 22.8. For the VSR driver. PSR Smokey 22.9. So, you know, despite the used tyre on Fezzo, he still would have been on pole as it stood anyway, to say the least. Here comes Nando then going into that final corner. Looks like he was just track extending again, but just got away with it. He comes across the line, 23 to third place, splitting the two PSR boys. Here comes Harry for Shazoo, comes across the line, 23.4. Puts his car in fourth place and further splits the PSR boys. Still waiting on lap times coming in. One from Legend, one from Kian. First it will be the former as he now comes into the final corner. The Ferrari man will be hoping to try and get himself towards the front, and he certainly does. 22.6, beating Fezzo by just a little bit over a tenth on his invalid lap. Kian, though, invalid lap, 23.3 is what he would have set, which would have put him P5, further splitting the PSR boys.
Yeah, I think he invalidated coming out of turn number 14, where we saw with Smokey. It's unfortunate for Kian. It was a 52.5 middle sector, so it was looking like a very solid lap from the Ferrari team, of course, the Talent Factory. They really need, I think, a 1-2 in this stage. Smokey and Nick haven't really performed so far. Nick, of course, on that used set of tyres. Smokey, we assume, is on that fresh set of tyres. I'd be very, very surprised if that was a fresh set, to be honest, from Smokey. They're in third. And he's behind Lucas as well. Lucas really coming out in the session so far. We've only got 5.5 minutes to go. So the drivers really need to crack on if they want to try and get at least 2 more runs potentially out of this. But Lucas there in second. So far, the real shock in this qualifying session, of course, things are going to change. But VSR have put themselves in a potentialness of their best qualifying result of the season. Both their drivers in. I wouldn't be surprised if Lucas actually gets in the front 5.
You know what? Hate to be constantly preaching about my boy Fezzo, but that 22.7, would have put himself in P2 on a used set of soft tyres, which is just going to make Juventus smile from ear to ear. And you know what? Throughout that lap, that rear end looked so planted. It just seems to me that he knew he had a good lap and he got to the final corner and just got a bit too excited knowing what was coming. And I think, honestly, if it weren't for the tank slapper at the end, it could have been even a 22.5, so it might have still been pole. But nonetheless, he doesn't set a lap time, and as a result, he stays in P9 alongside Magician in 8th. Kian also surprisingly in 10th. He would have had himself in P5 if it weren't for the invalidation on that occasion. But 4.5 minutes to go. Advantage Talent Factory, but only really just through Legend on pole. But as it stands, it's a Q3 sandwich and the second sandwich of this qualifying session. Talent Factory at the front and at the back.
Yeah, definitely so. And of course, looking at the outlook coming into tonight as well, remember Talent Factory is in the lead by on 297 points. Was about to say they were leading by 297 points there. That would have been absolutely remarkable if it was the case. PSR in second on 290. Outplayed Racing in third on 168. Just while we've got the drivers in the pit lane, we'll run through this quickly. VSR in fourth on 119, Shazoo in fifth on 114, Nexus Racing in sixth on 73, then Juventus in seventh on 47. Leg with Fezzo potentially going to be getting more points here tonight. WOR in 8th on 31, Team Valor in 9th on 31, and Summit Racing Team in 10th on 24 points. Frankie also saying in the chat, apparently going to be contradicting you, the commentator, 22.7 apparently is not a used set of soft compound tyre, that is a fresh set of softs. And I'm, to be honest, very, very surprised if that is the case, because it looked to me, otherwise there might have been mistakes on that lap. Otherwise, it looked a really good lap. And if that was on a used set, then I'm just as surprised as you are.
Yeah, no, I do not think that is a new set. I just doesn't quite add up, because you're telling me then that Talent Factory have purposely put themselves at a disadvantage by letting Legend use a new set of soft tyres, and potentially harming their long-term prospects, whether if Francie thinks that that's the case, maybe, but it doesn't quite add up to me, that one. Either way, Fezzo is actually the first person to get straight out there. He wants to get on with it, and you know what? Don't blame him as well. He's got a serious determination, has the Haas driver, has the Juventus Racing driver. Looking forward to see what he's got coming up. Just behind him, by the way, VSR Quantum also very keen to get going as well. Bottom of all of the drivers that have set a lap time at the moment, with that 23.552. So he'll be looking to get his qualifying up and running, to say the least. Another driver just leaving, Shazoo Harry, just leaving the pits right now, as is an NRX's Magician.
Yeah, and it's going to be the case, I think. There's Mercedes also coming out the pit lane. I think that's Lucas. Everything is going to come down to who's going to be last across the line, I think. That could set pole position. Now, I think Talent Factory and PSR are trying to play the same game. They want to be the final guys out on track to try and set a very good lap time. And it looks like it's going to be Smokey, the final man to come out the pit lane, potentially. I think Nick, is Smokey? Yeah, Smokey's actually coming out the pit lane now. It's Nick that's going to come out the pit lane very soon. He's going to leave it very late indeed. Fezzo there, of course. Remember, Fezzo actually kept a fresh set of soft compound tyres from Q2 into Q3. He's definitely on a fresh set now. I can tell by the gleam coming through the final couple of corners, as he now is the first man on a run down in towards turn 1, and Quantum actually somehow has actually escaped ahead of him. So he's actually the first man on a run coming to the right hand of turn number 3. We'll see in comparison for their first sectors. Quantum's first sector 17.303. Fezzo's first sector through the first sector 17.204. So he's already a 10th up.
Yeah, looking fairly sharp indeed at the moment. So Quantum looking to sort of set the initial precedent anyway. 10th and a half up on his normal lap time. Though a 10th up at the moment for Fezzo, as he again goes into turn. The next turn is such a deep turn here. He can easily make a mistake through here for Quantum, as he's now heading through and out of turn 7, as he'll power down through what is straight not straight of turn 8. And then heading into turn 9, where we've got a little bit of racing happening between Outplayed Racing and PSR at the moment on their outlaps. Purple second sector, as he goes a 52.4 and puts himself 4/10 faster than his last lap here. So this is where, the used tyres were at their worst, is through this particular set of corners. So we should be expecting here some low to mid 22s coming from Quantum. If he can try and push himself towards that goal is the other question. As he goes through turn 15, then into turn 16, McLaren staying out of the way as he goes into that final corner. And an important lap coming in here from Quantum as he comes across the line and goes second fastest, 22.6. Here comes Fezzo as he comes across the line, though, 22.4 for Fezzo, which would immediately indicate to me they are new softs versus the old ones, potentially, as Legend is looking quite sharp, but he's only 29 thousandths up on his previous best lap time, and that could be a critical situation because that first sector is pretty crucial for a new set of soft tyres. Smokey also only 89 thousandths of a second faster than his previous attempt as well.
Yeah, Harry's invalidated, by the way. He looks like he's going to be in the bottom of the session, potentially. Nando's 800s up through the first sector. Kian was about 500s down. Festival retires out on track, out of everyone's way, albeit, but that is going to be a little bit of a nuisance from him. Legend in the middle sector, down in the middle sector. 52.4 in the middle sector. Unless he finds 0.2 of a second from somewhere miraculously in this final sector, this is going to be really under pressure. Kian, on the other hand, popped up on my screen. He was purple in that middle sector. So Kian now looking to be the man to watch out for, coming toward the line. Magician and Harry are already done on their laps. It is going to be Kian towards the line. Lucas doesn't improve in the end. 0.004 of a second off his teammate. Kian, though, to the line, goes second. Doesn't do enough. Quantum is obviously done. Smokey is 0.2 of a second up. 52.4 in that final sector. He's now coming through into the final sector, through 15, and then in toward the right-hand return, number 16. My man for pole position. Please don't let me down. Coming through the final corner on the run to the line, and he nearly gets it by, what, 1600ths of a second in the end. Nick is on a lap, 52.5. He's not as quick as Smokey in that middle sector. He'll go around Nando, Quantum, Lucas, that sort of area. Nick on the run toward the line should go between them, and he does. He goes 22.7. Not good enough, and it's your man Fezzo from my man Smokey, and you couldn't get better than that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's in the end, you know, it's 16 thousandths of a second. I'm not smiling with a smug face at the moment on that one, but in fairness, you know what, if we set in 22.7s on you softs, 22.4s are expected at the best of the track conditions with the freshest of tyres. Really good stuff from Juventus Racing. I believe their first pole position of the season as well, and now they're going to potentially not just be on for a podium, but maybe even a race win. But the shock of the day is PSR Nick, 8th place. That's the last thing PSR needed in their climb back to try and take Talent Factory's lead out of the 7 points that they've currently got. As it stands, though, Fezzo on pole, 22.484, the only driver to get into the 22.4s. Smokey, 22.5 exactly, and 16 thousandths of a second, separating them from Legend, 32 thousandths back, and Kian, 76 thousandths back. Incredibly close stuff. 10th and a half separating first from fifth, with Nando in fifth, Quantum is sixth, and Lucas in seventh. Nick is in 8th with Magician in 9th, and Harry rounding out that top 10. Crikey, what a great qualifying. Race is coming up. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division, and we are going to be in for one hell of a race ahead of us after that one, because in the end, it was less than 1/10 of a second separating a bucket load of people, potentially up to 4 people in the end, were being separated to get less than 1/10 for pole, and in the end 5 people separated by 1/10 and a half, and in the end the whole grid was separated by such a short margin. It is myself, Jota, alongside James Head tonight for what is going to be a magnificent Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Yeah, welcome along to Legacy Division, and this is now going to be the fortune of Legacies, quite literally, here in Abu Dhabi, because we've only got 2 rounds left after this, 3 rounds including tonight. We've got 29 laps of racing here in Abu Dhabi. Should be an interesting one. Qualifying session, anything to go by. Fezzo looks the man to beat. PSR Smokey's going to be right there in the front row of the grid. Blackbox saying there in the chat as well. Time for some TF domination. They're starting 3rd and 4th. It's eye-wateringly good coming into tonight.
Take a look at those standings before we go in then, of course. In the end, then, Talent Factory still leading the way on 297 points. However, it is the critical moment here for Talent Factory because, of course, they have a possible advantage going into this race with PSR Nick down in 8th place. They've got VSR and Outplayed Racing separating Nick from the Talent Factory drivers who start 3rd and 4th. Smokey did manage to get in front of Talent Factory's Legend and Kian, but Fezzo beaten him to the end of pole position, and in the end Juventus will be hoping to get that pole, and actually potentially a good racing scenario for Juventus here, because Smokey could prioritise holding back Talent Factory to let Nick beat Lucas and Quantum and Outplayed Racing's Nando in order to try and put pressure on Talent Factory. We are in those latter stages of the race here, of the season rather. It would not surprise me if PSR told Smokey, abandon the race, win. We've got to get Nick in there and take points out of Talent Factory.
Yeah, to be honest, Juventus with Fezzo, no disrespect to Fezzo, he did a fantastic job. Juventus are so far down, they're not going to be catching the front two teams, so he may as well. He may as well try and get tactical early, I think, in the session. It's going to be really interesting regardless. I mean, Nick there and Nate, I would not be surprised if he is up there with the Talent Factory boys at the end of lap 1. It could get quite messy in the midfield as well. Obviously, if there's any safety cars, that could really come into play. It's high tyre wear around this track. There's plenty on the line for these drivers to really grab at. But it's going to be really interesting. I cannot wait for the action out on track. PSR there, 290 points behind. Talent Factory by 7. PSR with Smokey currently both ahead of both Talent Factory drivers. That is going to be their key priority, and it could get quite tactical quite early.
Potentially, that is to say the least. As we take a look down towards the midfield then, so Shazoo Harry in 10th place in the end. It was a bit of a disappointing qualifying in the end for Shazoo, because they were looking fairly sharp in Q1, but going into Q2 and then of course into Q3, they lost one driver and then they lost the other with a 10th place start for Harry, and then Johan for Outplayed Racing in 11th, a bit of a shock place for him. And of course, towards that back end as well, TV8 didn't have the greatest of qualifyings either. Gilly down in 14th, with WOR, the solo WOR driver of Diogo Silva, starting in 16th place. All of the drivers, however, have all elected to start on that hard tyre, as to be expected. We're not having any mix-ups in potential strategy. 20 seconds left before we go racing. Initial thoughts then, James. What are we going to see?
Carnage, chaos, and maybe just a bit of tactics.
Simple as that one. 10 seconds to go in this one. Expected race victory is anybody's game with qualifying so close. We'll find out then. We've got laps ahead of us. The drivers are lined up on the grid. And with those drivers lined up, we're counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a... Go, the drivers, here they are, down that inside line, of course, and my battery for some reason has just died. That's a bit random. Either way, Fezzo going into the corner, trying to defend from Smokey, has to go around the outside line. No tactics playing here for Smokey. Wants to put an immediate pressure on Smokey, but around the outside he will go at turn 2, and what a re-overtake from Juventus Racing's Fezzo, overtaking Smokey, going into the next corner. He may go for the dive, though, as they're still side by side on the 2. They bang wheels ever so slightly. Smokey would be wise not to put too much pressure on Fezzo. The race is not with Juventus, as with Talent Factory, as he will continue the pressure going down into the straight here. Will Fezzo, he's got nothing to lose, he might go for it. Here he comes then, immediately trying to defend that inside line. He'll have to go around the outside, dives to the inside from Fezzo. He's going to go for the late breaker, but he's going to get switchbacked into the next corner. He's still putting pressure on. Here comes Legend, and Legend makes the move up into P2. Fezzo tried to defend it, he loses one, and he may lose another.
A Magician's out of the race as well. It's huge carnage further down the field. Might cause a safety car to VSC. VSC deployed out on track. Legend was absolutely thundering on the back of Smokey, and there's more trouble because there's a 5-second penalty popped up on our screen for Legend hitting the back of Smokey. It's a full safety car now out on track. Both Johan and Magician out of the race. I think Lucas and Josh Gilly got caught up in that as well, further down the field. But drama early on. I did say we'd get tactical early on. Legend, unfortunately, into the back of the Smokey. And if I was the Talent Factory team, I was on board with Legend there. He didn't touch him. He needs to get that one removed.
Well, that's the awful situation, is that he might not be able to, because, of course, he has to serve that penalty when going into the pit lane to change his tyres, which he has to do at least once in this race. And if you serve that 5-second penalty, a serve penalty theoretically can't be given back, because of course you have lost more time than the 5 seconds, because you're going to end up being behind people that you perhaps shouldn't have been for in the first place. So it opens up too many questions. In the end, Legend may not end up having that 5-second penalty remove. Either way, Fezzo will be disappointed, but I'm going to be honest with you, I was on board with Kian when the safety car came out. And to me, it looked like Kian was actually behind Fezzo when the safety car was called out, and then he's now in front and he stayed in front. So the stewards may end up having double trouble with Talent Factory. If Kian was adjudicated to be behind Fezzo at the point of the safety car coming out, both Talent Factory drivers are in trouble.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because he was actually side by side with Legend, I think, in towards turn number 9 as well, so I would not be surprised if he's tried to maybe eke out a little bit of a glitch in the game there, and maybe to his advantage there, Kian and Fezzo. Let's just talk us through, though, that one once again, because honestly, between Smokey, Legend and Fezzo, that was probably one of the most entertaining first laps I think I've ever witnessed around here in Abu Dhabi. Absolutely phenomenal. Fezzo going too late in brakes, pretty much like Hamilton and Verstappen back in 2021. Absolutely deep on the brakes. He's now got himself back into fourth position behind Kian. Absolutely remarkable overtake by Legend around the outside of the chicane. You've got to feel sorry, though, for Johan and Magician, who are already out the race. Both NRX and OP cannot catch any luck so far. But honestly, Smokey, Legend and Fezzo, however this is going to go out and however the stewards might view this, what they have to view, though, was that first lap. Because up until that VSE came out, that was remarkable racing between the three of them, and they should be very, very happy about that.
So Talent Factory are in trouble, at least with Legend. Whatever happens, surely that penalty is not going to get removed, even if it is undeserved. He's going to end up with a 5-second penalty that he has to serve in the pit lane. Kian, on the other hand, overtook Fezzo. I'm absolutely sure that Kian, and this is not me trying to be biased, I promise I'm not. It seemed to me that at the point of the safety car coming out, which we all saw, it flashed up on the screen, sector 1, 2, 3, yellow flags waved. Kian was behind Fezzo. He went for the late breaker going into the left-hander at the end of the straight, and at the end of it, he was in front of Fezzo. So to me, he was behind him. He's overtook him illegally. Surely that could be a penalty on the case of Talent Factory. That's big news for PSR, of course. Smokey now leading this race. Nick has gained a position. He's now up to 7th, with Quantum and Nando holding stations in 5th and 6th. And towards the back, by the way, fantastic start from SLR. 5 and 6 positions gained, respectively. 10th and 11th for the pair of them. Good stuff from SLR.
Yeah, really strong starting back, because all of that carnage unfolded coming out the chicane at 6 and 7. It's brought, Timberbox up 5. You mentioned Nigel there up 6 positions as well. Also up 5 positions, Yona, 13th position. He's actually stayed out there in that set of medium compound tyres, I believe, as well. He's obviously going to have to pit in again towards the end of the race. But if there's another safety car, 10, 11 laps in, that's going to really help his course in terms of strategy to go back onto a set of hard compound tyres. In terms of that, Diogo Silva's up 4, Jensen up 4, Ogween up 4 as well. It just comes to show the level of carnage that I think happened further down the field, which we didn't see. I certainly didn't see from camera shot, but regardless, it was an incident coming out of turn 6 and 7 to the chicane. I think we just caught cutting each other. It's a safety car now is coming in this lap. Smokey now virtual Burt Malander. He's now the virtual safety car, and if I was him, I'd probably go on the exit of turn 14.
Well, we'll have to see anyway whether it does decide turn 14 if it chooses a different corner. Either way, looking at this one, we have a pretty intense race ahead of us with Smokey leading the way. He'll want to try and pull away from Talent Factory's Legend and Kian. I think PSR will fully know that Talent Factory are in trouble for both of their drivers as it stands, and I've got no doubt that PSR absolutely will probably send a clip in from the end of this stream to the stewards to try and maximise the damage that they can do to Talent Factory. Here they come then, they go through, going through into turn 13 is PSR Smokey, now approaching into turn number 14. This is where he said that perhaps he would go, as we go back on board with him now, as he will keep weaving left and right, get those tyres nice and warm, and he does go at the end of turn 14, then into turn 15. He's certainly caught Legend napping as he goes through into turn 16, and after only 3 laps of 29, we go green again here in Abu Dhabi. So Smokey leading the way from Legend with that time penalty, of course. That is going to apply already. Pressure going on from Juventus Racing, who it looks like Kian has actually given the position up immediately on Fezzo in good sportsmanship, but in doing so, Nando has decided to swallow that position up as well. He said, thank you very much. If you're going to slow down, I'll have the position off you as well. Disappointing stuff, but Nando doesn't really know what's going on in that one.
Definitely not. Quantum's trying to go around the outside of Kian as well. Kian's got into the
crikey!
Bit of side-by-side contact. There's a hash round on the background as well. That's Yona who was spun on that set of mediums. I think he might have got collected. A bit of the Constantino effect. Nando was up into 5th. Kian there in 6th. If there's one position to do it out on track, don't do it at least at the start of the lap down in towards turn 1. That's the worst possible time for Kian to give that back the position. Me said in the chat he was going to give it back. Didn't say when. coming down towards turn 1. It's a shame. Legend now side by side with Smokey trying to go around the outside as my voice is cutting out here. Coming in towards turn number 9, tries to sail all the way around the outside. Even with the 5-second penalty, Legend around the outside of Smokey. Brilliant move. Round the outside. Gets the job done. He's into the lead of the race. Smokey there in second. Remarkable racing from Legend. One up. Many positions down for Kian. That has not worked out at all for Talent Factory, certainly from one of their drivers' perspective.
Full respect from Kian to give that position up at the end of the safety car period, but unfortunately has been swallowed up by Nando and Quantum, and then Nick also in that sort of mix as well, trying to battle off with Kian at one point, actually squeezed him off of the circuit going through turn 12, but in the end decided not to hold up that position, and he stays behind in P7. Legend, though, great move on Smokey around the outside to get that move done and dusted. Now staying in front of Smokey. Now Smokey probably caught napping there, and he's realised that he's in trouble here because PSR need to take points out of Talent Factory. As it stands, Talent Factory are extending their lead in the championship on both drivers by, guess what, 1 position each. It's like they're rubbing it in their faces at the moment. Juventus Racing as well in this mix. Fezzo is looking very quick as well. He's not using that much in the way of his overtake, while Smokey is trying to keep up with Legend. At the moment, Fezzo is very happy to just stay in the toe of Smokey, and if he keeps using up all his DRS, which Smokey has been known to do in the past as well, Fezzo will be very happy to swallow him up on the straights as Diogo Silva makes an overtake, or is battling at the moment with Harry down in turn 12 at the moment, and they're still side by side going out of turn 7 as they now head through into turn 8. It looks like Harry stays in front of Diogo.
Yeah, Harry's actually got past on Diogo. Diogo's now really struggling. He's got Lucas going around the outside of him in towards turn number 9 as well. Traction really benefits the Brave around here through turn number 9, and Lucas is surely going to get the traction on the exit. Beautiful move again. So easy to do around turn number 9, given how they've changed the track layout here. That is Lucas turning into 13th. Diogo Silva down in 14th. He hasn't got the pace. He'll be hoping to try and stay within that DRS train, I think. That is happening all the way up to Ian there in 6th. Jamie Johnston saying that in the chat as well. Apparently Nick has got a little bit of damage on the car. Yeah. Not sure if he has, to be honest, because he's keeping up with Kian. Kian might potentially have damage as well, remember, off going into the back of Smokey. So this could be really biting them back. And Kian dropping now 1.1 seconds behind Nando. It's not Nick I would be worried about, as there's a mistake there by Quantum coming out of turn number 3. He's recovered the car well, but he's going to be side by side now with Kian into turn number 5. And that's just silly from Kian. Trying to go around the outside of him. In the end, left short of room, Quantum. And Kian now through the 5th, Nick in 6th, and Quantum now dropping further positions down the field. Yeah,
really silly from Quantum, that one, to just try and hold on to the position despite being significantly slower on the drivers around them. And either way, he ends up losing so many positions as a penalty, perhaps, for going for that one. Whilst this has all been said, by the way, Nick was actually part of that Concertina effect at turn 6, which led into, at turn 5 rather, which led to that incident. With a bunch of drivers all sort of crashing into the back of each other, after that safety car period. So Nick potentially could have damage, but who was in front of Nick when that Concertina effect happened? Kian. So it may not surprise me if both the Talent Factory's Kian and PSR's Nick has got damage somewhere on their car. Fezzo holding on, by the way, to Smokey, no problem at all, while Smokey, on the other hand, has started perhaps a little bit of an ERS harvesting issue. Luke in the chat asking the question, so what is Legend's time penalty for? Well, Talent Factory's me says I got an out of nowhere, we get 5 seconds. Well, it's because, unfortunately, when the safety car came out, Legend was ever so slightly tapping the rear of Smokey, and because this game is extremely sensitive to collisions during the safety car, Legend gets a 5-second penalty, and as a result of that one, I really struggle to see how the stewards are going to remove that 5 seconds still, because, of course, removing served penalties is a risky business in racing.
It is. Goodness me, my voice has gone. I don't know how. Legend there in the lead. Smokey in 2nd, Fezzle there in 3rd. Yeah, Legend, it's going to be so hard, I think, for them to actually give up the position. And speaking of positions being given up, here is Nick on the back of Kian. Certainly doesn't look like he's got any front wing damage on the back of that, on the front of that McLaren. In towards the left-hander now of 6 and 7. Tries to get the job done, might have a good run out, and now with Nando making a mistake ahead of them as well, now brings them back within DRS range, but Nick is surely going to try and sail on by around the outside of turn number 9. Here he's side by side with Kian towards the outside line. The McLaren tries to hang it all the way around the outside. Kian is given no inch of room. They're catching each other slightly. Nick's got to be very, very careful that he doesn't hitbox him. Fair play to them. Not even an inch between them both there. Beautiful racing between them both. Kian stays ahead.
See that red light blinking on the back of that Ferrari? That indicates he's out of ERS, and he is struggling now. He's dipped below 10%. Has that Ferrari, and he's now track extending as well. Kian's in trouble, and I'm thinking that front wing damage that he may or may not have, or some kind of damage to the car as a result of the Constantina effect that happened at the end, or the beginning of that, well, rather the end of the safety car period, has now resulted potentially in some serious problems for Kian, who are also maybe in a little bit of trouble later down the line as well if any collisions are deemed to be his fault. VSR Lucas, time penalty, the first person to get a time penalty is relation to track limits on only lap 8 of 29. VSR will be keen to rein him in a bit here because they need the points here, but as it stands at the moment, a big mistake actually from Kian going into the corner far too hot. He'll have the DRS, but he's going to have no electrical energy, and I have a sneaking suspicion that this move is going to be easy come, easy go for the PSR driver of Nick, as he'll dive down the inside, dives back down to the outside, and he'll have the toe of Outplayed Racing's Nando as well. Is he going to go for the late breaker? Kian certainly is. Nick leaves him the space, in fairness, but the position is well and truly gone. Nick stays in 5th.
Yeah, nothing wrong with forcing them off the track either on the exit of the corner. Just got caught in each other. It's racing at the end of the day. Fezzel's run on the back of Smokey as well. Josh Gilly now picked up a 3-second penalty further down the field. The front three looking very enticing indeed. Nando all of a sudden has dropped the pace completely. I wonder if he's got a bit of side pod damage actually. I'm just looking at his floor on the right-hand side, and it almost looks like there's a little bit of a chunk missing out of the side end plate actually on the right-hand side of the car. So I'm not sure if Nando maybe clipped the wall coming down to 14. He is really on the back foot though. He's got no ERS either, so he's really beginning to drop the pace. I would not be surprised if that OP man is carrying just a slight bit of damage on that car. If Nick is carrying any damage, it is very, very slight. I don't mean light green sort of slight. It's not affecting him in any way. He's now ahead of Kian. Kian now beginning to drop back, and Jensen all of a sudden, the Shazoo man, is getting into this as well.
Well, you know what it's like though, these cars, aren't they, this game? It's just such a horrible place to be if you've got damage at any part of the car, because you just lose so much time. The lack of electrical energy is going to be a serious problem for Nando as well, so both those issues are going to be paramount for the Outplayed Racing driver. Here comes then Nick as he's trying to make a move, as Fezzo is also looking to try and get a move potential on Smokey. I'm looking at this one here. Is he going to go around the outside? Oh, that would have been a squeeze if he went there, but actually he's caught Smokey napping a little bit here, because now he's going to lose a bucket load of time in breaching of that one here. So here comes then Outplayed Racing's Nando trying to defend from Nick. Fezzo looking to try and get the move done if he can help it. Here he comes then down that inside line. He's going to be able to look for it. He chooses to get in his wing mirrors, and he'll continue to play the long game here, as will Nick on Nando.
Yeah, I would love to know what what these wings are running for the McLaren and the Haas that look so quick down the straight. Fezzo especially looking quick there in the back of Smokey. We saw Nick getting passed through on Kian. I'd love to know what his speed was running at. About 210 mile an hour, I think, was in towards turn number 6 and 7. The PSR boys, if they've got a real knack for setups, they really do. And it's especially prominent around here at a track like Abu Dhabi. We should see the first pit stop begin to happen soon. They're on that set of hards. However, the set of hards do blister quite a lot. So it is going to be intriguing when they are going to decide to come in the pit lane. I'd be expecting, personally, somebody like Ogween, Simbarock, somewhere down the field to come in a little bit early, maybe try the undercut. The undercut more powerful than the overcut around here, so that is going to be quite potent as we go forward. Lap 10 out of 29, Legend leads, Smokey second, Fezzle there in third, and Adrian saying in the chat, imagine if there's a safety car in the final laps and Legend wins.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a bold situation to happen. Of course, remember, though, Legend has that 5-second penalty that will need to be served. Lucas confirmed 5-second penalty will not be removed. It can't be removed if it's been served, so rightful call from a stewarding perspective, to say the least, on that one. How did Nick get damaged? Luke also asked as well. It is the Constantina effect that happened at turn 5, as I think there's a big tank slapper happen involving Nando.
Yeah, Nando caught on the outside curb coming out of turn number 7. Nick has absolutely ate that one up, just like he eats his breakfast, lunch and dinner. He's into 4th, and Nando, a rare mistake, I'm going to say, from Nando. He's been solid so far this race, but he's now on the back foot again. He's got Nick ahead of him. Perfect from a PSR perspective, not so much from an OP perspective.
Yeah, it's going to be a bold call. Yeah, going back to that point, though, about Nick potentially getting damage. It is a result of the collision with involving Kian, involving Nando, a Constantina effect at the end of the safety car period, as we have a second yellow flag being waved in the first and second sector, and it is a spinning Juventus Racing Jonah. What a horrible race it's been so far for the Coca Patria to Fezzo at the moment, who goes spins and now is 1 minute and 2 seconds behind Diogo Silva. Never mind the rest of the grid at the moment, but as it stands, that front three still within touching distance, still within DRS. Nick leading the rest, though, with the DRS train falling back as far as 9th.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened to Yona actually over the last couple of laps. I swear he was on the back of the DRS trend the last time I looked, but clearly been making a few mistakes out on track. He hasn't actually came back in the pit lane, so Yona, not sure if he's been making mistakes out on track or if he's just been running AI mode. Perhaps something might be going on personally, but they're in 16th. Down at the back of the field, Juventus Racing have got to be very careful as well. That don't want to break the rules, as Nigel is on the back of Simbarox and actually does not get past him in towards turn number 6 and 7. I thought there was going to be a swap there between the SLR boys. Disappointing. We want racing. Harry's on the back of these guys as well. Big old split beginning to happen in the mid-pack with this big old train. And at the minute, nobody is looking for the move. And now, actually, Nigel, once again, SLR, I don't know if they're working each other out or if they're just trying to play games with each other at this stage. But Nigel's now through on Simbarox in one of the most weird overtaking opportunities I think I've ever seen.
Well, I think SLR, of course, they are 2.5 seconds back off Ogween, so there's no DRS for the person in 10th place at the moment. So they're saying, well, you're free to race, and well, obviously gives them the best opportunity to get some racing experience in SLR. And of course, they're on for a point as it stands as well, so it's going to be pretty critical that Nigel holds on. And of course, while they're still battling, that's going to hold back the likes of Harry and Lucas. Of course, Harry and Lucas, let's be candid, are probably that little bit faster versus SLR, but whilst they're battling, they can't really go anywhere, to say the least.
Yeah, they can't. And Harry there in 12, once he gets out of this big old train with the SLR boys, he is going to be absolutely charging. He's on a lap fresher set of tyres as well. He's already been in the pit lane once. There's a potential possibility, as soon as I say that, Harry's made an absolute humdinger at turn number 5 and he's gone straight on almost. Lucas Fernie's into 12, Harry there in 13, got caught on the outside curb, spin nearly for him, Josh Gilly now in the back of him, and all of a sudden Harry down in 13th, and I better not say anything else because I'll just commentators curse him again.
Bear that one in mind. Lucas going into the next corner, though, and he stays behind Simbarox. One, of course, the DRS train working a treat, but the traction on the back of that Williams is not looking very sharp indeed. Here he comes then, actually. The VSR Lucas, he is going to get the move done, actually. He's going to start splitting the SLR boys up as they go side by side, and he's running out of electrical energy. He's not going to go for it. He's going to go around the outside. This will be the second time if this works out, but unfortunately not able to find it, so he'll go for the switchback. And what a move this will work as well as he gets the switchback done and dusted. They stay side by side, though. Simbarox one will have every right to defend it, and he is doing so, you know, around that outside line. He'll have the inside will VSR Lucas get into slight collision of the pair of them, but Simbarox one concedes the position. VSR aggressive but very firm indeed. Lucas up to 11th.
That wasn't aggressive whatsoever. I thought that was absolutely cunning from the VSR man. Very much Harry nearly into the back there of Simbarox as well. Goodness me, it's all kicking off down here at the back of the field, but Lucas there in 11th. Doing a fantastic job. What an overtake that was. It takes some commitment to try and go for switchback out of turn number 9 and to try and get the traction all the way through into the left-hand of turn number 12. Fantastic stuff from Lucas. Fernie's into 11th. Josh Gilly now has picked up another 3-second penalty further down. Nigel also picked up a 3-second penalty just ahead of them. Josh Gilly now on 6th, and Legend, of course, with that 5-second penalty from a little bit earlier on. Smokey on the back of Legend. Not really pressurising. Legend, by the way, 71% of ERS. Smokey on 70. Fezzo on 52. So the Juventus Racing man, if he's got a chance at the top 3, maybe just save a little bit of ERS up as Harry has gone through in the Simbarox through the chicane.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that we may expect from a driver that's not as experienced maybe as Legend and Smokey. The ERS management program from Fezzo has not really been that quicker versus Smokey and Legend, but he's still able to hold quite a big bit of juice, to be fair, to bring up the pressure on the front 2 at the moment. Nick still holding around 2.5 seconds back, though, and he's starting to close down the traction here. Now that opportunity here as Harry is going for a little bit of a diver, looks like versus Lucas here. They're still battling here, and this is actually turns out to be some of their favourite corners to overtake. Turns 9 all the way through 16 at the moment for the guys in 10th, all the way as far down as 13th at the moment. Really loving that part of the circuit.
They are, and there's quite a few bumps actually at that part of the circuit as well on this game. I know they're going to be, I think it's going to be a laser scan track on the new game, if I'm not mistaken. So Abu Dhabi is going to remove most of them bumps. Codemasters going to work hard, I'm sure, on that, and it's going to be much more better for pad as well as wheel drivers around here. But Harry on the back of Lucas, 11th and 12th position, really the only action I think we've really got out on track. We're halfway through now, pretty much even Legacy Division. Legend leads, Smokey in 2nd, Fezzo in 3rd, Nick there in 4th. Nick, just because of that ERS disadvantage and because he's down on the back of Fezzo, he can't really catch the front 3. And unfortunately for him, I think he's going to be ending up in 4th position better off. Harry again on the back of Lucas is trying to catch. In the end, can't get the job done. Smokey getting closer to Legend, not getting close enough though for moving towards turn number 9. But yeah, it's all very hunky-dory at this stage, and nothing really happening until we get to the final thrust, or until somebody makes a mistake and a safety car gets deployed.
Yeah, and here comes an overtake then from Harry, who's going to go for the dive. It goes in for a big spin. And I tell you what, that was opportunistic to say the least. And if anything, it's only helped SLR right back out here. Lucas is still battling with Simbarox 1 as a result of that one. But Nigral has managed to get right back in front now and has pulled out quite an enormous lead here of over nearly 3 seconds on Lucas, who now will relegate himself down to 11th place. Harry, to be fair, he's been aggressive all the way through this race, but that was one step too far. Kian is now in the pits. Nick in the pits. Nigel also in the pits. We are now expecting the 50-50 pit stops to start opening up, and the first medium tyre runners are now on.
This is a bit early, I've got to say, for a set of mediums. I was expecting them to come in more 17-18. But these guys know better than me. Normally from a PS side, I would say it's a little bit early from the medium runners to actually come in the pit lane, but they are going big undercut strategy. PSO and TF have split their strategy, and now can let Smokey and Legend fight for this race lead. And do you know what? If I was in Smokey's shoes right now, I'd be applying much pressure to the back of the Talent Factory man. And look at the speed that he's got coming out of the corner. Now on the back foot again, just slightly. But now with that ERS, he's going to try and have a go with Legend. If there's any move to make, it's now. This could determine the race. As now tries to go all the way around the outside of turn number 9. He'll get the traction on the outside, but in the end, can't get the job done. Legend through still in the lead of the race, and Quantum going around the outside of Jensen and all of this as well. Trying to get the move done around the outside of turn number 9, but can't get the job done. And Jensen remains ahead of Quantum. He's through there in 5th and 6th. And Simbarox and Lucas, once again, these guys going at it. And this time, Simbarox comes out on top.
Yes, in 8th place is Simbarox 1. I'm just monitoring the situation with Fezzo at the moment, see what the pit stops are coming in here. All three at the front are coming into the pits here. Nando also doing the same. Jensen is in. Quantum is in. Ogween stays out. So he's going on another lap, which means Team Valor will now lead the race. From the front here with Ogween, of course, again, still needs to make that pit stop. Smokey then comes out. Fezzo now in. Fresh set of medium tyres waiting for him. There he goes. And, of course, remember, Legend has served a 5-second penalty, which means he's now going to fall down the standings. And that will mean now Ogween leads from Lucas, from Josh Gilly. Harry is now up into 4th, but here comes Smokey from Fezzo, from Nick, who is now in 3rd place. He'll try and get in front of Kian if he can, and he certainly does. So then it will be all about Nando, where he comes out and is looking very sharp indeed. Suddenly, for PSR, Legend is now in 11th.
It's even better for PSR because Fezzo's got a 3-second penalty for cutting the pit lane entry, and that will get removed because it is a known glitch within the game. Fezzo, unfortunate to get that 3-second penalty. Legend now having to make up ground past Jensen. He's going to get the job done down into the straight in towards 6 and 7. So he flies past the Shazoo man in towards 6 and 7, gets the job done further down the field as well. Quantum right on the back of these guys in all of this battle. Smokey now having to go at Harry for the, net race lead for Smokey. Now puts Harry in the way of Fezzo. Fezzo, though, with that 3-second penalty, but coming out pretty much 2 tenths behind him, coming out the pit lane. He's now right on the back foot once again. Quantum and Jensen are still going side by side, coming through turn number 9. This would be a great move, and one of these can pull it off. But Jensen stays ahead.
Oh, they've collided as well. Fezzo wanted that move done and dusted, and Harry wasn't very keen to give him the space. He's now lost that position, and he's lost a load of time, Fezzo, as well, actually, on Smokey. Gap now 1.5 as he tries to get the gap here. Harry it looks like Harry is also staying out another lap, despite the collision that happened earlier on that could have got him damage as he collides ever so slightly with Nick once again. Harry is being incredibly aggressive out there at the moment as he goes into turn 1 and just gives the position straight up to Nick. Harry at the moment is showing some pace that perhaps you would expect from someone who has got damage, and he certainly does. He's missing an end plate on the left-hand side, but he is trying to defend left, right, and centre. Is he going to defend from Kian, I wonder? He is not on that occasion, so he's decided in the end enough is enough, as for some reason it was missing an end plate. He now has got an end plate back on his car, so he's perhaps just understeering around the corners. Here comes Nando. Is Nando going to have to force a defence from Harry? Harry is looking like he's not putting that much pressure on. He knows that this is not his race. I wonder he's going to go into the corner, and looks like to me he's just going to allow that position to disappear.
Yeah, Harry, to be fair, is one of the drivers where he doesn't really want to give up a position. He's one of the instinctive racers out on track. And look again with Legend. Here comes Legend on the back of Harry. I don't think he's going to risk it maybe down in towards turn number 9. Somebody that has those Quantum. to get the job done on Jensen. Legend, though, tries to get the switchback. How on earth that Ferrari is fitted up the inside of the Alpine? I do not know through Tournament 9. Beautiful stuff by Legend. That is why he switched back from PC to PS. That is why he's one of the best drivers on the PS side as well. Legend doing his into 7th. And Harry, I think, has got left side winglet damage as opposed to end plate damage. Unfortunately, and there's a huge lag spike, actually, for Harry, who goes completely wide coming through the final couple of corners. That was a huge lag spike from him. Affected him coming through Tournament 12. Lets Jensen through as a result. But my word, Harry nearly got set off in the wall through no fault of his own.
Yeah, Harry is really struggling out there at the moment. Last couple of laps has been really difficult for the Shizou driver, now on 9th and 10th respectively. Nick now up to 4th place, by the way, in all of this. Has what been a bit of a tumultuous start to this race. PSR are now suddenly looking very good indeed. They've got 18 and 12 points respectively coming their way. Meanwhile, by the looks of things, TF are going to be having 15, it's 10 and 6 points, so 16 place 30, which means PSR will retake the lead in the championship as it stands, as it looks like Smokey and Lucas getting into a little bit of a battle, as Lucas, who is still yet to pit, by the way, has now just been overtaken. Fezzo 1.2 seconds back from the Mercedes.
Yeah, and I just want to say, fair play to Yona for getting out of the way of the leaders there, on the right-hand side in towards turn number 9. Completely, and he's getting out of the way again. He must have damage potentially on the car. He's so far down the field. He's just given up the ghost, I think, at this stage. But other than trying to hold the leaders up and trying to make it a little bit tactical, certainly from a Juventus Racing perspective, he's doing the right thing. He's doing the decent thing, getting out of the way of everyone. Fair play to him. Not many drivers would do that in his situation. But Fezzo, in his situation, is going to get through on Lucas through the final corner, on the run to the line, gets the job done, and he's into 2nd. Nice move there by Fezzo. Harry's coming in the pit lane, I believe, as well. Coming in is also Yona. So Yona in the pits. Harry actually got overtaken, I should say, rather than anything else, and Yona does retire from the session. Unfortunate for him, but at least he didn't make the tactical between the guys and try and give Juventus Racing a little bit more points than what they're currently on, with Fezzo's 3-second penalty probably going to get removed.
37 place 16 at the moment as regards to the points being distributed, which falls well in favour of PSR. So PSR will be retaking the lead in the championship as it stands. So plenty of racing to go, 10 laps of it to be exact. And of course, PSR Lucas still needing to pit means more points will be falling in the favour of PSR and Talent Factory in general anyway. So we've got yellows in Sector 1, by the way. That is for Jonah, who retired in the pit lane just now. So he will be, his car will be on the circuit for a very brief period of time, but we shouldn't expect any safety car to be called as a result of that one. Nando then going into turn 9, critical corner for a lot of these drivers here. 3 overtakes in total we've had at that corner. It's been absolutely wonderful to watch on that one, as we are just, while we're maintaining the conversations at the moment on circuit between the drivers, we maintain the conversations happening in the chat as well. Good evening to yourself as well. Francesco Lago says double down on that one. Fezzo got the pit lane warning glitch, and Luke doubling down also saying that will get removed. Maris in the chat as well saying, yo, nice to have you on board with us here in lap 20 of 29, 9 laps to go, and I tell you what a race it has been so far.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and from a Talent Factory racing perspective, you want to hide behind the sofa, I think, right now. You're in 5th and 7th. Lucas still yet to come in the pit lane, so that's going to be good from their perspective. Nick now is going to eye up a move on Lucas coming through turn number 3. Lucas is not going to give any position here to Nick, and in the end, Nick just backs off and just waits a little bit, as Nando's gone very deep into turn number 5. But I wonder if that was tactical, and I think it was, because both of them are going to have DRS, and Nando's right on the back of Legend. There's going to be 3 wide down the straight in front as well. I don't know where I'm turning with this battle, but look at Key and Speed now to the inside line, and Lucas trying to get the job done on Nick as well. In the end, can't. Talent Factory making inroads now, both through into 4th and 6th. Key and Throonies into 4th. Legend there in 6th, and now Lucas dropping all the way down on an express train to Moldova. Nando now on the back as well of these guys, and it could be 3 wide in towards turn number 9. Nando is coming from an absolute mile back to try and get this job done. They've got to be very careful not to make contact, and in the end, beautifully done between all 3 of them. Legend through in 5th, Nando there in 6th, Lucas there in 7th. Fair play to Lucas for trying to hang that one, to hang that battle on, but in the end, Legend and Nando too good on that set of mediums.
Remember, Legend has had to serve a 5-second penalty. That's the reason why he's now down in 5th place. Kian, in fairness to him, would have received a penalty if it were the overtake on Fezzo under the safety car, but gave that position straight back at the end of the safety car period. But unfortunately, ended up getting into battle with guess who? Outplayed Racing's Nando, who is now behind him in 6th place. So Outplayed Racing Nando seems to be just in the right place at the right time to be causing a little bit of a mix-up between all of the drivers at the moment. Absolutely fascinating to watch, to say the least. Lucas electing not to leave it out any further. He possibly could have gone for the hard-soft strategy if he wanted to, but of course I think VSR were waiting for a safety car that may just not happen. As it stands, though, it is going to be 40 juicy points heading to the way of PSR, with Kian and Legend getting 12 and 10 respectively, giving them 22. That is easily going to allow PSR to take the lead in the championship. As it stands, at one point it looked like PSR were in deep trouble. Now they're in real possibility of being in the front spot.
Yeah, by my calculations, I think that is an 18-point swing, if I'm not mistaken, for them guys, which, if I'm not mistaken with my maths, is going to mean that the gap of 7 points will be 11 points. I think the gap is going to swing to PSR in favour as it stands. But of course, there's plenty in between now and the end of the race. Smokey there leading the way, Fezzle there in second. My choice versus the my co-commentator's choice here for potentially qualifying and the race win. Smokey clearly coming out on top. Fezzle with that 3-second penalty will get removed. I honestly, between these two, wouldn't mind a safety car right now from somebody else further down the field in the best possible way, because I want to see what Fezzle was really made of against Smokey. And is he really on the level of pace that Smokey is on? Smokey at the minute is quicker than him, just because he's ahead. Fezzo, I know for a fine fact that will take the fight to Smokey if that is the case. I wouldn't mind a safety car to see who is quicker between them both. And if Fezzo was quicker than Smokey, then we should all take notice.
Fezzo is unfortunately doing himself no favours at all, because he is now derating, going down the main straight and only just able to get into 8th gear. With no electrical energy left in the Ferrari power unit in the back of that Haas, he is now going to be in a serious trouble in the battle for P3. Now, he wants to try and stay in front of Nick by that 3 seconds, just in case the stewards decide not to take the 3 seconds off. We are expecting the 3 seconds to be removed, but he doesn't want to take any chances. But you're not doing yourself any favours by having no electrical energy on any lap. He needs to stop using overtake and start considering harvesting some energy, so then he can put on a battle towards the front if he can help it.
Yeah, and Luke asking in the chat as well, who was the fastest lap in the minute by only 300ths of a second. It's Fezzo from Quantum as it stands, 300ths of a second between fastest lap. There's Nick there in third, Kian there in fourth. Just watching on board with these guys, they fly past the camera angle there through 14, then towards 15 and 16. But Smokey, Fezzo, Nick currently the top three. As it stands, Smokey will be coming out on top of, but that fastest lap point also being for Fezzo. I mean, he's got a better result from last week for third position. Juventus Racing to really get behind him, because Fezzo, I'm not sure if he's allowed more races for the rest of the season. If he is, then fantastic stuff. I look forward to seeing him. But in the end, he's coming up against the WOR Console Tier 1 champion, and he's Console Tier 1 champion for a reason.
He's absolutely flying at the moment, 1.5 seconds holding the gap between him and Smokey, but he's using up all his electrical energy, but he's still pulling away from Nick somehow at the moment as well. So perhaps the strategy of derating is actually working a treat at the moment. But of course, whilst he's able to be in clean air, Nick isn't, because he's now battling with Kian as he goes for that dive going into the end of the corner. And Nick, I think, was caught napping a little bit. He wasn't expecting that one. DRS will be available though for the McLaren as he will now go down the straight. DRS wide open. Is he going to be able to re-overtake Kian, I wonder, on this one here? He's getting closer, but staying behind him. He's going to have to go around the outside, and this will be the fourth time that we'll see an overtake at this corner, but in the end, Kian holding back. So PSR now losing points to Talent Factory with that fourth place, but Kian very keen to put pressure on Nick.
Yeah, interesting call actually by Kian. Maybe the call has been given for the Talent Factory guys to apply a bit of pressure, and then maybe bring the likes of Nando, Quantum, Jensen all into play. They're at the back of this train as well, doing a great job. Kian there in third, now ahead of Nick. Certainly called me napping as well, because I didn't even see that move happen. Kian Thuney's into third, Nick there in fourth, Legend in fifth. Fezzle just beginning to eye up the ground slightly. 1.3 seconds now the gap. I'm not sure if Smokey had a mistake coming out of turn number one there, but the gap has just closed by around 0.2 of a second. So Fezzle beginning to get on with things. Kian now in third. They're not going to catch the front two unless there's a safety car, but at the minute, Smokey Fezzo is currently in the battle for the lead, and the rest are just playing in their shadow at this stage.
SLR will be very happy if there's no safety car at the moment. 7.5 seconds between them and Ogween. 5 seconds separating Nigrel from Simba Rocks 1, so they've got a guaranteed point as it stands at the moment. So Nigrel will be hoping to keep that one under wraps here. Just keeping an eye on the penalties, actually. 3 seconds for Nigrel, so it's very good stuff indeed as we go to that midfield. And Nando is really putting pressure on Legend. Late breaker going into turn 7, which is going to allow for Legend perhaps to pull away, but Nando is definitely wanting to stir the pot up a little bit here. Kian is already derating now, so now he's got in front of Nick and suddenly is realising, Sugar, I haven't got the actual pace to get and stay in front of him here, and now he's putting himself under so much pressure that Legend could re-overtake him if indeed Nick decides to go for the overtake, or if Nick decides what I think he's going to do, which is the esports method, stay behind him until the final lap and overtake him on the straight on lap 29.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did last time around. I was on board with him down in towards 6 and 7. He looked like he was going to get close enough just on pure straight line speed. In the end, didn't want to risk it. But if he makes a mistake like that coming out the final corner, it just puts him on the back foot and then puts him under play from Legend, who's got slightly more or slightly less EOS in fact than Nick. About 5% more Nick has got compared to Legend, and he's got 30% more, double the amount, nearly triple the amount actually compared to Kian. So they're really running. It looks as if Talent Factory want to play this smartly, they've got to bring, I think, Kian back into Nick, maybe get Legend ahead of Nick as well, and then try and force the gap. Nick is now on the back foot down the straight once again. Legend now beginning to attack him potentially, and all of a sudden they're beginning to use each other's batteries. Good from a Talent Factory perspective, and here comes the block on in towards turn number 6. Kian tries to get the job done on, they get caught in each other slightly there, Legend and Nick. In the end, Kian will hold, I think, 3rd. Nick there in 4th. Legend's going to have one more going and maybe towards turn 1. But look at the straight line speed of the PSR, man. Yeah. Now the McLaren. Don't know what wings he's running. Purely and utterly round the outside of turn number 9. Should get this job done. Kian there on the inside line. Still battles back like a heart of a lion. And now they're side by side in towards 10, 11 and 12. And if they're not careful, they're going to make contact. But in the end, Nick is through and he's into 3rd. Bit of derating between them both. Legend now through and he's into 4th. That's worked out perfectly from Legend's perspective.
Yeah, Legend, you were absolutely right. I think Talent Factory were looking to try and put pressure on Nick throughout those section of corners to try and cause Nick a little bit of a hiccup. But in the end, Kian was the one who ended up making the hiccup, and he blinked. And then Legend, look at that. He's now losing the rear end ever so slightly. And look at that overtake. The amount of energy he's got left is minimal. And that is only going to allow Nick, who has still got about 30%. He did not feel any pressure at all from those Talent Factory drivers who were stomping all over him. Has just re-overtaken the pair of them and can now drive away. So gap is now going to be around about half a second. They will have DRS with Legend and Kian, but they're not going to have any electrical energy. Meanwhile, who's behind? Outplayed Racing's Nando, and he's got electrical energy to use, and we know what he's like to try and mess things up.
Yep, Quantum and Jensen exactly the same boat as well. They've got more electrical energy than both Talent Factory guys combined, in fact. So that is looking promising from their perspective. However, Nando's just lacking in a bit of pace. Quantum and Jensen just beginning to lose a little bit of ground as well. But Legend there on the back of Nick once again. It's going to get quite tactical, I think, between these guys. We've only got 3 laps to go, by the way. After this lap is complete, there's chances of a safety car now looking pretty much minimal. Oh, Legend very close to the back there of Nick into the turning circle of turn number 9. And nearly makes a mistake on the exit of the corner as well, just to boot, but the Dutchman doing a good job. As Simbalocks 1 is round coming out of turn number 7 and 8. So I'm not sure if he's had a bit of contact there, maybe with Lucas on the exit. They were certainly looking to go side by side. If not, he's just caught in the curb, he's spun. And now Simbalocks 1, unfortunately for SLR, 1 driver down the field, Nigrel, sitting pretty in the final point scoring position, which is good for them.
Yeah, but they've got 3-second penalty on Nigrel's shoulders. It's 5 seconds for Diogo Silva. 1 lap younger tyres for Diogo Silva as well, which is only going to help them, but the question is can he find 2 seconds in 3 laps? That is the main question on that one. Nick is now just ever so slightly actually losing time to Legend, despite the fact that Legend is now doing a Fezzo and he's using up all his energy where he doesn't need it. So now he's going to go into the corner, he's going to go for the late breaker. He's still at his apex though, has Legend, so he is going into corners quick, but he's not coming out of them too quick, but he is going to try and go for the overtake. And you know what? Legend is being squeezed and he's going to be told you're going to have to go down the inside line and have the acute angle, but he's made so much inroads on that straight. He's now going to command in front, and now he's on the podium.
Yeah, and Nick, to be honest, didn't use up any EOS and said, you know, yeah, come through. I'm not minding. I'm going to get you on the final lap of the race anyways, and I think it's working really good from a PSR perspective, Nick will be on the back. Quantum all of a sudden beginning to get into this on the back of Nando. Nando beginning to lack in terms of speed down the straight there. Nick was looking to the outside line on the exit of turn number 9, but Quantum now beginning to get in contention. 7th position, VSR by far having one of their best races of the season, doing a fantastic job, is Quantum, man of Spectre and many, many other villains in between, as Quantum now comes through the left hand of 14, and then through the right hand of turn number 15, as soon as I nearly put the mockers on him there, coming through the curve of turn number 15. I'm not going to make any more James Bond references here tonight.
Good effort, though, nonetheless, I must admit, on that one. As you just keep an eye on lap 28 of 29, it is looking fairly good so far for Smokey, but I must admit, we've got to be candid here. Fezzo is looking so sharp at the moment over the last couple of laps, and now gap was actually below 1 second very briefly. So Fezzo already now starting to put somehow a bit of a challenge on Smokey for the race victory here. Now remember, that 3-second penalty he's got on his shoulders is likely going to be removed if Juventus Racing, of course, send the appeals process correctly. So if Fezzo manages to get the jump on Smokey and take race victory out of Smokey's hands here, that is going to be a massive loss of points for the PSR team, as we've got battle happening here with PSR Smokey trying to defend here from Kian. Legend has already started to make some serious inroads now, and now Nick is now suddenly wondering, oh, crikey, am I going to be able to hold on to the podium, I wonder? And look at that, his electrical energy says he's panicking.
Is indeed Quantum trying to go around the outside of Nando as well. And if I was an OP man right now, I'd be looking maybe to get that collision maybe investigated by the stewards, because if Quantum got past there on Nando, that would have been a shoo-in for an investigation. He almost forced him off the outside line at turn number 9. So unfortunate, I think, from Nando, because he looked like he was going to get the job done on the back of Kian. In the end, he can't, but Smokey now to the line, takes on to the final lap of the race. The gap is a second. Fezzo can't really catch on the back of Smokey. It's just the tactical know-how and the prowess and that strategy, as we mentioned so many times so far tonight for PSR. On strategy, they've been brilliant. Nick now, all of a sudden, he's wasted his battery to really good effect. He's on a lap older tyres. Legend on a lap younger. They're telling towards the end of the race. Legend now surely going to be wrapping up third. But it's a who's who further down the field. I would not honestly rule out Jensen for move on Quantum, maybe in towards 6 and 7.
Legend and Kian at the moment will be taking up the points tally that they'd lose versus Smokey's race victory, and they would lose in total 12 points on Nick, which would make the final standings 4 points. The difference between PSR and Talent Factory, if my maths works out correctly. As Jensen and Quantum getting into a little bit of a battle. Remember, this is the final lap of this race here, and they're still battling for 7th and 8th, as Jensen is relegated to 8th and potentially 9th, as Ogween is getting closer and closer. While this is all happening, Fezzo has got within DRS territory, by the way, of Smokey, as that battle for P7 is still brewing, and Quantum will go around the outside, and Jensen will very happily force him out wide, but Ogween will do the double overtake, as it looks like Kian and Nick are still battling towards the front here, and this is important here for Nick to hold on for those 12 points, because of course if he falls to 5th, in the end it will be 1 point separating the two teams here, as Smokey takes race victory here tonight in Abu Dhabi from Fezzo, from Legend, who will take P3, and in the end Kian will not be able to take P4, so the gap will be 4 points in PSR's favour for this championship, with Nando finishing in a respectable 6th. Ogween will have absolutely no idea how he's managed to finish in 7th, but in the end Quantum and Jensen were the makers of their own demise in that one. Nigral takes a point for SLR, and a well-deserved one indeed, staying in front of Lucas for VSR. WOR's Diogo Silva on his own tonight finishes in 12th, from Gillies for TV8 in 13th. Shizu Harry, what a race it was for him, a tumultuous one at best, with Cimarox 1 finishing the line in 15th place, but it is all about this man here. PSR Smokey takes race victory in Abu Dhabi.
He does, and it was absolutely well-deserved. However, if I'm a Talent Factory person right now, I'd be investigating that man who gets driver of the day, Nick. They were nearly in the marina, going off into the track limits, coming out of turn number 9. Nick almost forcing Kian, I think, nearly into the wall on the outside. Absolutely remarkable. I've never seen anything like that. The track limits extension taken to a complete new level. They nearly ended up in the Marina Bay here in Yas Marina. Unfortunately for him, I think Nick might get investigated because of that. In the end, though, it is Smokey who takes P1. Fezzo, remarkable P2 there for Juventus Racing. Their best result of the season by an absolute country mile. Phenomenal drive from him. And they're in third, of course, the Ferrari of, and I'm just going to get it up before I forget, it is Legend, who finished, of course, in third. And in the end, Fezzo stole fastest lap of the race by 300ths of a second.
300ths of a second, and then Juventus Racing have also a fastest lap on their record alongside the pole position, and they'll be thinking, oh, it's a shame we couldn't convert that into race victory, but nonetheless, what a performance indeed from the JR driver, finishing in a very respectable second place, one position up on the position that he got last week. So one more to go, Fezzo. Smokey, though, taking the race victory tonight from Fezzo, again, fastest lap from Legend, Nick, Kian, Nando, Ogwin, Jensen, Quantum, and Nigral, rounding out the top 10. Towards the back, Lucas, Diogo Silva, Josh Gilly, Harry, and Simbarox 1, founding out the drivers that finished this race. Jonah and Johan and Magician all DNFing from this race. I tell you what, though, what a fantastic race that was in the end. Abu Dhabi doesn't usually deliver, but tonight it was an absolute belter.
It was an absolute cracker. I said it could be chaos carnage. We could see some really good overtakes, and that certainly happened, especially in the first couple of laps of the race. Phenomenal overtaking around the outside of turn number 9. Talent Factory, though, are going to be absolutely fuming, maybe at what Nick done on that final lap of the race. I would not be surprised if there's an investigation. I would not be surprised if it's the last. Well, if it's not the last we've heard of this. It's unfortunate, but it's the rules of racing. They extend over track limits, and in the end, I mean, the fact that they end up in the marina is one thing. The fact that they end up over track limits, outside of track limits, is another. So it might get investigated, and I don't think we will have heard the last of it just yet.
At WOR League_, by the way, if you want the latest information on that one. 4 points is what my maths works out in my head at the moment in favour of now PSR, as PSR now retake the lead in the championship for the second time in 4 races. But I tell you what, we're going to be in for an absolute magical one, because next week we're going to be in Brazil, which usually always brings some spicy racing. Even real life F1, now we're going to take some drivers that are all fighting out for a championship. Let's see what happens. See you next week. Bye-bye for now.